The Ultimate Universe's line of comics may have come and gone, but that doesn't mean our love and respect for those characters needs to fade. Welcome back, Nerd Squad. I'm your host, Amanda McKnight. Today we'll be returning to the Earth of 1610 as we count down the top 10 Ultimate Marvel characters better than the original. Part 2. Number 10. Jessica Drew. Jessica Drew is very different from her 616 counterpart. Now, while I personally prefer the 616 Jessica Drew as she's one of my favorite spider people of all time, I can understand why others might find the ultimate version of the character more intriguing. This version of Jessica Drew is not her own person. Quite the opposite. She is in fact a female clone of Peter Parker. She shares Peter's memories and even his feelings, which means that she too cares for Mary Jane as Peter did. She was created to be used as a weapon by the CIA, but before they could wipe her mind to clear out all of Peter's memories, which she shared, she and the fellow clones who were created alongside her escaped. With all the other clones also sharing Peter's memories, Jessica attempted to dissuade them from interfering in Peter's life, but ultimately failed in this regard. In the end, she would team up with Spider-Man to help him try and find Mary Jane, who it turned out had been kidnapped by Kane, another of Peter's clones, whose ultimate self was also known as the imperfect or flawed clone, just as he is in 616. Number 9. Carol Danvers. Alas, this Carol Danvers doesn't have powers, like her 616 counterpart Captain Marvel, formerly known as Miss Marvel, does, but that doesn't make Carol any less awesome here. In fact, some would likely believe that the character actually might be improved without her cosmic abilities and her Kree heritage. This Carol Danvers is a high-ranking S.H.I.E.L.D. agent who would actually go on to become a replacement to the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., Nick Fury. To me, she embodies a lot of the military and tactical elements of Carol and possibly highlights those even more. Although sadly, she's not a pilot like Carol is on Earth 616. Carol would go on to lead the New Ultimates, and after her time with S.H.I.E.L.D. would actually become the chief of staff for the president, initially serving President Howard and afterwards greatly helping Steve Rogers, aka Captain America, when he became president thereafter. And friends, before we move on to the next spot, if you are loving our content here on Top 10 Nerd on YouTube, be sure to check us out over on Facebook, where we have lots of other content coming your way, and we're also gonna have some lots of cool different stuff, so be sure to check it out. Number 8. Gah Lak Tus. While Galactus is an iconic antagonist on Earth 616, the unique take on the often supervillain and supremely powerful cosmic being was a refreshing one. Here, Gah Lak Tus was still a global threat, but as opposed to being a giant cosmically powered man who can sometimes, let's be honest, be reasoned with and defeated that way, this version of the villain was a group of deadly drones that were less easily reasoned with. After coming to the reality of Earth 616, this group of drones, which once threatened the Earth of the Ultimate Universe, threatened instead the whole universe of Earth 1610 when they met and merged with the Galactus of the main continuity. Galactus of Earth 616 decided to make the Gah Lak Tus his heralds, resulting in a deadly combination. Number 7. The Liberators. The Liberators are basically a more politically inspired version of the Masters of Evil, a more serious take on that villainous group. They're made up from heroes of various international rival nations who basically seek to destroy the Ultimates because they feel the US has an unfair advantage and needs to be put in their place. The crazy part is that a lot of their beef feels pretty justified and serves to expose some of the flaws in American nationalism throughout the story involving them, despite those like Captain America and the Ultimates being the heroes of that story, while the Liberators are still technically very much the villains. Number 6. Green Goblin. While not everyone is as big a fan of this version of Green Goblin, I for one am a pretty big fan. In the Ultimate Universe, Norman Osborn more literally mutated into a Green Goblin, a giant hulking green figure who is seemingly unstoppable and even suggested to be immortal. Not only that, but this version of Osborn was directly tied to Spider-Man, as it was his own formula that granted Peter his spider-like powers and abilities. Maybe not for everyone, but I think that is pretty cool. And sure, this goblin wasn't stealthy in most cases in comparison to his 616 version, but he definitely comes across as more menacing and intimidating from a physical standpoint at least. Number 5. Kitty Pryde. Once again, it is hard for me to say that I love the Ultimate Kitty Pryde more than the main continuity Kate Pryde over 616, as I really love her dearly, but I will say that I think Ultimate Kitty Pryde had a lot of awesome stuff to offer, and that while still staying true to the heart of the character, differentiated separated her enough from her 616 self. And I really appreciate that, especially as a Pryde fan. Kitty in the Ultimate Universe was known for being headstrong and strong-willed. Despite her mom getting a promise from Professor X that Kitty, if enrolled in his school, would not go out on any X missions, Kitty was stubborn and snuck aboard the Blackbird to do so anyways. She would prove herself to be a formidable leader who many mutants looked up to over the years, and for a time would also be a close friend and even romantic partner of Spider-Man. The two would date and fight crime together. It was pretty cute. There is honestly a lot to love about the Ultimate Kitty Pryde. Number 4. Ben Grimm. As opposed to Ben Grimm, the college friend and roommate of Reed Richards, these two became friends when they were little kids and remained close throughout middle school. Just like in the 616 version of this story, Ben Grimm was a strong, athletic type who became the star of the football team, known by the nickname the Grim Reaper. However, it was also at this time that Reed was teased and mistreated a lot in school by other students, because of his brilliant and unique mind, which made him stand out. Grimm stood up for Reed though and looked out for him, and in exchange Richards would help Ben with his homework. Eventually Reed would be recruited to working for the Baxter Building at a young age, and the two would be split up until years later when Grimm appeared to be in the Nevada desert, near Reed's test area for his end zone experiment. Grimm joined Reed and the rest of his team, including Sue, Johnny, and Victor Van Dam, and witnessed the test, and as a result was changed forever. This version of Ben has a much more solid trajectory of accepting what he's become after he's transformed into the Thing, and although initially Sue and Reed are closer, eventually Reed ends up the odd man out, and Ben and Sue even end up together romantically, with Sue even proposing to Ben. Number 3. Silver Sable. Silver Sable has a somewhat darker origin story, if that's possible, in the Ultimate Universe. Instead of losing her mother and wanting to avenge her death, the young girl was often left to be raised by her mother, who frequently mistreated her. While she didn't know growing up, the truth that her father was absent was that he hunted down former World War II German soldiers, those who did awful things and were considered on the wrong side of the war. While on Earth 616, Silver Sable knew this and begged her father to train her. In the Ultimate Universe of Earth 1610, she didn't know of her father's true line of work until he was on his deathbed. She was brought by his associates to see him one last time, and he told her the truth about his work and apologized for not being there for her. With his dying breath, he said he wished he had had more time to teach her everything he knew. This inspired Silver Sable to follow in his footsteps, becoming a mercenary who used the money from her jobs to fund her own work and becoming the leader of the Wild Pack. Number 2. Betty Ross. In the Ultimate reality, it is Betty Ross and not Jennifer Walters who is She-Hulk. I don't think I prefer Betty's She-Hulk to Jen's She-Hulk per se, but I definitely prefer this version of Betty to the one from the main continuity of Earth 616. In this version of the story, Betty Ross fell for Bruce Banner shortly after college, but a wedge was driven between them when Bruce's work on recreating the Super Soldier Serum and his obsession with testing on himself resulted in him being transformed into the Hulk. However, when director of S.H.I.E.L.D. Nick Fury planned to use Wolverine to hunt down the Hulk and eliminate him, Betty Ross decided she had to do something. While she didn't have the rank or clearance to really interfere with the decision and the mission, and she was unable to convince the other heroes to help her, she took matters into her own hands by stealing a non-rage-inducing version of the Hulk formula made by Jennifer Walters. Betty took this formula herself in pursuit of the Hulk and Wolverine and was transformed into the She-Hulk. Number 1. Colossus. As with many other characters on our list, Colossus of the Ultimate Universe had a much more tragic upbringing than his 616 counterpart. On Earth 616, Colossus grew up on a collective farm in Russia, spending much of his spare time painting when not working on the farm, a talent he showed great affinity for. However, in the 1610 version of the character's origin, Colossus's Pyotr Rasputin fought in the Cold War, where the secret that he was a mutant was revealed to Anatol Spichkin. Spichkin promised Pyotr work should he ever need, and agreed to keep his secret. In this reality, Colossus's skin turns to steel, but it doesn't really come with super strength, so to work for Anatol he would take a drug known as Banshee to grant himself super strength to go along with his skin's durability. This Colossus is also gay, but spends most of his life in the closet in regards to this. When his father first found out, he was ashamed of Pyotr, and as such Pyotr has struggled most of his life, worried about the secret of his sexual orientation being revealed. His story is uplifting and empowering, and while different, is possibly even better than the 616 narrative for Colossus. Who are your favorite characters from the Ultimate Universe? Do you prefer them to their 616 counterparts? Why or why not? Let us know in the comments below. This has been Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host Amanda McKnight. You can find me over on Twitter at VampX13 if you want to talk more comics and general nerdiness. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, you stay nerdy, YouTube.